So was 2022 a blur for anyone else? Now, before you jump into 2023 and setting your goals, I want to caution you from actually doing that. And the reason why is because last year actually taught you a lot. It's just whether or not you've sat down to evaluate those experiences. Because experience itself is not going to help you next year, but evaluated experience will. And today I want to share a framework that will allow you to use 2022 to propel you even further into 2023. And it does not matter how 2022 started or ended. If you're ready to do that, let's go. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. We help leaders build massive influence so they can make the impact they want to make in the world, not just in their business, not just at their career, but also at home too. What's crazy is when you start to see the world differently, the world will start seeing you differently too. Now, we do that with quick tip videos on Mondays and Thursdays and longer workshops on the weekend to really help personalize this for your leadership role. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, but let's get right into today's framework. So I recently did a workshop to help guide people to their 2023 goals. But so many times we're thinking about visioning in terms of creating something in the future, and we're leaving a lot on the table because there's so much that last year has taught us that can give us the direction that we need to take to make 2023 different. And that's why I want to share this framework with you today. Now, I like to call this my universal answer to how, because anytime this brain starts to think about how do you do that, Mark? What are the steps? What are the actions? What do you have to do? I revisit this universal equation because it'll really point me in the direction that I need to go. Now, I want you to write this down. Doing the right things, connecting with the right people, and learning the next right lesson. Now, you might get to this point and go, what are the right things? How do I find the right people? And what's that next right lesson? That is where the power in last year is going to help us. So let's start off with identifying the right things. You did things last year, and I really want you to think about whether or not they were taking you closer towards your goals or further away. Now, you probably have heard me teach on the 80-20 principle, which says that 20% of the actions you take produce 80% of the results in your life. Now, when you sit down and analyze the things that helped you move the needle closer towards your goals last year, what were those things? What were those things that you thought was going to move the needle that actually didn't at all? Now, based off of that, how can you do more of what's working and less of what wasn't? Another question I'd like to ask you is, based off of last year, was there something that you were getting pulled to trying, but you actually talked yourself out of doing it? How might you add that to the list of activities to try this year? Because the truth is, you'll never know if it's going to work if you never take action. You cannot improve inaction, but you can use last year to identify what activities to do more of and what activities to stop doing. Now, I also want you to think about this. You have to be willing to put in the time and energy and effort into whatever activities you do for at least 6 months before you have a return on investment. So are you willing to invest the next 6 months in that specific thing you're looking to do without being attached to the outcome? If so, those are activities to take into next year. The next step is connecting with the right people. So how do you figure out who the right people are? I remember when my mentor gave me this idea of the 3 levels of reach. Now, as a leader, we have to constantly be reaching in 3 directions. One is down, where we're lifting people up. We're helping people who maybe they're struggling with something that we used to struggle with, and we have the solution now, and we're there to help them. But there's 2 other levels of reach. There's where we reach out. This is to our peers, for people who want it just as bad as us, for people who are trying to grow in the same area that we're trying to grow. Now, when you're having conversations with these people, that is your community. Those are the people who will lift you up. You should not be having conversations with the people that you're reaching down to, because that is not your peer group. The third direction to reach is up. It's people who are mentors, people who've been there before, who are a few steps ahead of you on the path, who can tell you and show you the way. Now, I want you to analyze your 3 levels of reach this past year. Have you been spending 99% of your time reaching down? Like they say, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're constantly reaching down, you're naturally going to be pulled down to that level too. Now I want you to think about the people who you reached out to. Was there a certain group of people, maybe a specific person, that helped you get after it all the time? They helped push you, they helped motivate you, they helped inspire you, and they were growing along with you. Those are the kind of relationships you need to stick with. Now, were there other people that you're hanging out with that you realized after you got done having a conversation with them, like your energy just felt like it was zero? Those are the people that you want to spend less time with. And lastly, we want to find out, who were you reaching up to? Was there even somebody that you were getting mentoring from? Now, I highly suggest that this is a real person, but it can even be books and podcasts, people who are further along their journey than you. Now, based off of what your specific goals are, who is it that you need to be spending more time with? Who is it you need to be spending less time with? Really sit down and analyze the relationships that you've had this last year, because they will tell you who to spend more time with and who to spend less time with. Now, I really want to bring this second part home with you by asking you some questions about this past year. Now, when you felt most on point and you were most taking action, who was it you were hanging out with? If you ever lost your mojo or lost your motivation this year, who was it that you were hanging out with at that point? Now, what new group can you lean into so that you can both reach out and reach up? Who want a goal that's similar to yours just as bad as you do? And then who is a mentor that you can reach up to that is a few steps ahead of you to help guide you along the path? Now, next is learning the right lesson. So we've been able to identify some of the right activities and some of the right people. Next, we have to dive into the next right lesson. So what lesson is it that you need to learn this year? Let me tell you, the greatest teacher is pain. Based on this last year, there was probably some pain that you were experiencing that prevented you from growing to that next level. Now, it sucks in the moment to experience pain, but for me, I know that pain is the greatest teacher. It's trying to tell us where we need to spend the most time and the most energy to really develop skills that will help us achieve our goals. So where did you have pain this year? What is a skill that you need to develop that would make that pain disappear? Based on that skill, who else do you know that would love to learn that skill as well? It's always better to take somebody along with you on that journey too. Now, once you've had an opportunity to go through these 3 different areas, you might have a few ideas to bring into the new year. But you also might be wondering, how do I actually use this information to create a legitimate plan? Don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this workshop that I just recently did to help you create an unstoppable plan for 2023. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and keep leading from the front. See you guys on the next video.